Social Security is not that secure after all. Hi again, it's Douglas Lucky Larson, and today on the Retire Early and Often channel, we're talking about social insecurity, what you can expect and what you can do about it. Let's look at some very common headlines on the next slide. As a Gen Xer, my whole life has been peppered with headlines of the U.S. financial Social Security program underfunded, in jeopardy, and insolvent. Now, Social Security, in the actual true definition, sounds secure, but in reality, it's more like a Ponzi scheme, where people at one end are paid with fresh dollars coming in from the other end. When you contribute through taxation into Social Security and FICO taxes, there's no bank account with your name on it, accruing interest each year and waiting for you to retire and then claim your giant pile of money. Nope. Instead, money is going out just as fast as it comes in. In fact, even faster than it comes in. Even if the Social Security payments do continue, they have not been able to and likely will not keep up with inflation going forward. We see headlines constantly about the underfunded Social Security system. And these aren't just the political scare tactics like, if you vote for the other guy, you'll be eating cat food in retirement. Or, hey, look at what the other side has done to you and your future. Vote for us and we'll fix everything. Now, all that does happen, but the system has been broken for decades. And as I mentioned before, I've been seeing headlines like this since I was in my 20s. The fact is, the U.S. federal government if they didn't continue to borrow and create money, the Social Security system would certainly be insolvent already. Now, to put things in perspective, let's also look at the situation historically, just for a couple minutes on the next slide. You see, in old Europe, the ancient Greek and Roman empires, the Near East and Far East, either you were in the 1% of elite merchants, landowners, or royalty, or you were the other 99% who worked until you were dead or disabled. Lovely thought. Now, if you didn't have close friends or family to care for you in the last days of life, you simply became a homeless beggar. Even in the great lands of the early Americas, early cultures certainly revered their elders, but everyone worked in some way as a part of a family or tribe until they were just no longer able to do so. There is actually no precedent in history where average older folks suddenly left the workforce and family duties behind to go out and travel and play golf and just have fun. That is a modern Western construct. Now, after the Depression years of the 1930s, most Western nations set up government-sponsored pension schemes, a small allowance, to help keep our older populations from becoming destitute and literally starving to death. Government pension plans in most westernized countries were created with a good intent of having younger workers paying in by taxation to help older people who were past their working years. This way, the elderly could afford at least basic food and shelter. The Great Depression was particularly devastating on the elderly and disabled, who were most likely to go hungry or become homeless. Retirement on Social Security or any other government-sponsored plan was never meant to be a 20-year vacation full of cruises and leisure and fun. It was intended as a safety net for the weakest and the most vulnerable. It has evolved instead into a pseudo-savings account, where most people believe that they're paying into an account and one day they will simply make withdrawals. Two trends eventually began to happen through the decades after Social Security really got underway. After the 1950s, people began to live longer and family sizes began to get smaller. In 1935, when the Social Security Act was signed, the average life expectancy for a U.S. citizen was about 60, and now it's about 78. In that same time, Average family sizes in most Western countries have shrunk by 1 or 2 children per home. In some European countries today, the average number of children in is actually less than one per couple. Wow. So, how does that work out demographically? Not so good. That equates to less workers paying into these government sponsored programs and more people pulling money out for a longer time. Some people point to the ever increasing global population as a way to replenish the younger workers. However, the real numbers show that there's an ever decreasing number of workers paying into Social Security and similar programs in Canada and throughout Europe. There's a higher percentage of people these days on welfare or disability or unemployment or other government-sponsored programs than in the past. There are also more single-parent households, and many of the countries where birth rates are the highest are also the countries where education and skills are the lowest. These demographic shifts are the main reason that Social Security and other similar programs around the world are literally bankrupting themselves. George Mason University published a study in 2018 showing that the number of workers per retiree in the United States has decreased from about 4 to only about 2.8. They project that by the year 2034, only about 2 workers will support each retiree. Yikes. That kind of math simply doesn't work, and I'm not great at math. What would help is if wages have increased at a much faster rate than inflation, but that hasn't happened either. According to a recent study by the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, quote, they say the fund, as in Social Security, could run out as soon as 2032. And then there's the Bipartisan Policy Center, a DC think tank, and they say that the reserves could be depleted by 2028. Wow. They also say, this is still a quote, this doesn't mean that Social Security will run out completely, but it does mean that they'd probably only be able to pay a portion of the promised benefits. Now, massive unemployment, a recession, reduced earnings, and lower interest rates, yeah, we do have those, thanks to the Fed, could all speed the erosion of the fund. That's the end of the quote. Well, so far, the monthly payments have kept coming to retirees, even if what seniors can actually afford has been weakened by inflation, especially lately. The purchasing power of the typical Social Security beneficiary has fallen by 34% since the year 2000. That's according to research from the Senior Citizens League. The future is uncertain, and demographics do not look good. Most likely, the age to begin collecting Social Security will have to rise, as well as the benefit amounts will have to be reduced. My personal belief is that our government officials are not at all clueless to the downward spiral of the Social Security system. They've got their own plans. Did you know that most career politicians, public servants, they go to Washington, D.C. as basically upper middle class or, well off. But 8 or 10 or 20 years later, most of them are multi-millionaires. Public servants. Yeah, not really. They do want to remain in office, though, and stay close to the magic money tree, where money is printed, lucrative government contracts are handed out, favors are granted, and the latest financial information is readily available so that, again, these public servants just happen to make the right stock trades. So, yeah, we see how it is. To remain in power, these politicians will keep the Social Security system afloat with trillions more freshly printed dollars. As the dollars buy less and less, these politicians will simply shrug their shoulders and say, that darn inflation, who knew? Now, what can an average person do? Next slide. So, on this last slide, let's take a look at what can an average person do. Now, I do believe that some tough times are coming. Hopefully, it's not as bad as the Great Depression, but certainly we could see significant recession in the next couple years. And whatever our government does to intervene, it will inevitably hurt some in effort to help others. Always keep in mind that our government does not make money. They can only redistribute money made by someone else. But they are the middleman between the people that earn the money and those who they give the money to. So, as a middleman, they take a cut as well. Our government, the size and payroll, continues to grow. The Biden administration wants to expand the current IRS by 87,000 new agents. Seriously. And if you think they're only going to tax the really rich, you have not studied history. We will all be taxed at higher rates, and whatever money they decide to let us keep or they give back to us in the form of benefits or stimulus, it will continue to be worth less and less over time. Now, because I've been hearing these kinds of things and seeing these kinds of headlines since I was young, I decided to build my own nest egg and income streams, mostly through real estate, ordinary single-family homes that increase in value over time and that pay me every month in direct deposit rents. I know it sounds boring when you hear about 20-year-old Bitcoin billionaires who made their money overnight. Still, my kind of investing has worked for thousands of years and will likely continue for at least the next few decades. There are other things that you can do to be better prepared to eventually retire and even retire early. I don't give advice, but I throw out some infotainment that might be helpful. Here is some free infotainment. Number one, don't waste time. I know several grown men who spend hours a day, literally, in World of Warcraft, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto? Really? And porn? Really? Even sports can be all-consuming for some people. Now that we've got endless sports channels and there's always something exciting going on, and fantasy teams and sports betting apps. Sorry, if you want to be successful in the real world, you gotta unplug and actually do something in the real world. Provide some goods and services, and we will all be richer for it. Number two, find a hobby that pays you. Now, can you buy and resell items? Hey, my 15-year-old son knows what kinds of shoes to buy and customize and then sell for more money. This is like a legitimate business these days, reselling shoes. Are there other things that you can buy in bulk and sell individually for a profit? Do you have some skills doing something that you love? Like, I don't know, can you train other people's dogs? Can you fix cars or motorcycles or fix plumbing or replace old light fixtures with new modern ones? There's a ton of older folks in every town that just need a little help. Maybe replacing all their smoke detectors or cutting and hauling away some tree branches. You could advertise where these people look for services. And if you advertise in the right place and you provide a service that someone needs, you get the good feeling of being able to help someone and get paid well to do it. Number three, invest your discretionary income. Don't just spend it. Investing. Well, let's say you're like me and you missed the crypto trend so far. So you're not a crypto billionaire. Instead, let's say that you bought Apple stock starting in 2011. Just $100 a day trickling into Apple stock over the last 10 years. Did you know that right now you would have over 100K sitting in an account right now? Now, I'm not telling you to go out and buy Apple stock right now, but let's say you only invested $100 a month starting right now, like half into oil stocks, maybe Exxon, maybe Chevron, and then half into Ethereum or Solana if you want to take a risk there. Now, I'd be willing to bet good money that you'd be way better off in 10 years than if you sat around watching TikTok videos instead. Doesn't take a genius. Number 4, associate with people who are also financially aware and maybe entrepreneurial. There's a well-known saying that you will become the sum total of your 5 closest friends. So, choose your friends wisely. Number 5, if you don't own a home and you are paying $1,200 or $1,500 or $2,000 a month in rent, well, you're making a landlord happy, and as a landlord, I thank you. However, is there a way for you to buy something? Even if you have to rent out a part of the house or condo? Do the math and talk to a mortgage broker. It might make sense and be the right time for you to start building some equity. And if you've got one property, and maybe there's a way that you can rent that one out and buy another. I have no idea what your real estate market will look like in 5 or 10 years, but I do know that if you take any 10-year period over the last 80 years, property values have been higher compared to a decade earlier. That's a pretty good track record for real estate. And you know what? You have to live somewhere anyway. Why not pay yourself? There are even more radical things that you can do if you want to retire early and often and get out of the rat race. Even if you want to do it within the next year. Now, I'm going to take a look at some of those more radical ideas in another video, so watch out for that. I hope that this infotainment has been good for something. Please give me a thumbs up if you think so too. Really, it helps. Once again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.